It's been a minute since I've been on, and I got up this morning at about 4:45. I would say perimenopause is part of that, but honestly, I have been moving, packing, or cleaning for about 3 weeks straight. And at 50, that's a, that's a toll on a body. Plus, I did take a week off from work in the middle of it during the move, but I also worked, which for me is 2 or 3 jobs, full-time job, but then my private practice, and then I do minimal contract work at a third place. I've been doing all of that, so that's why this has been a while, and I'm posting this podcast just a little bit late and doing something a little bit different today. Just I don't know. I guess you could call it a vlog even instead of a podcast. But if you want to stick around, I've had some insights throughout my move that, I think as you're going through all of your stuff happens. And I thought I would bring it here to the podcast. So if you're interested, keep listening.
Welcome. You're listening to The Centered Midlife, a podcast that teaches women in midlife to unapologetically stop silencing their dreams and start designing the lives they want to live in. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie, and as a clinical psychologist of the last 2 decades and a twice-divorced single mother myself, I not only know how hard it can feel heading into midlife, I am living it right here with you. I have taken all the many failed attempts and lessons learned in my own life and combine it with my extensive clinical experience to give you the tools you need to make midlife the best time in your life. No joke. So let's get started.
Welcome back to The Centered Midlife. I'm at least a pot of coffee in, so hopefully it's not painful because I'm not going to edit, at least not beyond what the AI does on my software with the ums and the pauses and the whatever. Because I just figured today I would kind of sit and talk about some realizations. And if you're watching me on YouTube or on Spotify, if you see the video, I have no makeup on. I'm actually not wearing a bra, I'm just in my pajamas. This is I have a series of long sleeve t-shirts that I use because I need it to be light because I get hot at night. But if my arms are bare and I'm hot and then I put them out, then they get super cold and then I put them in, and then that just makes sleep even worse. If you're a woman in midlife, you may relate. So I bought a house and I'm actually really excited about it. It's just a really cute little house. It has all the features of the house or the houses that I grew up in, in where I live in Minneapolis, or where I grew up in Minneapolis. There's a lot of older houses, right? And they have basements because it's the Midwest. And so we have kind of a musty, old, unfinished basement. Super excited to kind of have that be a something that I get to create from. It's just a blank slate that we're going to get to create stuff from. Brain fog, couldn't word find there. Sorry. So love this little place. So proud of myself, unbelievably proud of myself that I crawled out of the financial hole that I had put myself in with my second divorce. And even after that, I during COVID had spent a bunch of money on learntoloveyourstory.com trying to get that up and off the ground. And it didn't go as planned. And some of the money was invested in things that in hindsight, I wouldn't have invested in, but this is what you do as a small business owner. You take some, you throw the dice, you take some shots, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes they work and sometimes they do not work. And there were a few that didn't. And so it took me 8 years. So 2018 is when I left, and it's 2026. And this is me moving into my place. But I'm eternally grateful to all the people that helped us along the way in so many ways. You know who you are, you're out there. I say us because it's me and my daughter. I wish it was me and my daughter and my son, but he's an adult now. So I think he will possibly come and drift in and out of this house, but he's not going to stay for any length of time. But she and I are going to put our little roots in over here. And one of the things that I just had a hard stop with is I ended up, because I was in Minnesota and both my parents, kind of their estates, I would say, were in Minnesota. My dad did move to Arizona right at the end of his life, but he had a property still up here when he died. And I got left with well, I don't know, if you've had people die in your life, you just get left with the stuff, right? And there literally was still 2 or 3 boxes left from 2000 and when did they pass? 2007 and 2008. Yeah, packed. I had packed that stuff and moved, and then I moved again, and then I, moved again. like I had whittled it away little by little, and some of the stuff I still have. Like some of the boxes are, Rubbermaid bins full of photographs and old movie reels that are of me and my 4 siblings. So at some point, I have to figure out what we're going to do with all of those, because I'm not going to get rid of them, obviously, but they need to not be in Rubbermaid bins and used in some way, put in digital form or something. Anyway, I had these boxes. So I decided when we moved into this house, it was going to be clean. It was going to be clear. It was going to be the things that we bring in that we wanted to bring. So, I put in my money into escrow. It was probably not quite 2 months out from closing date. And I started on this venture of, I had filed some of this stuff away, but I had paperwork. Some of it was mine. Some of it was my mom. Some of it was my dad's. And I started on this journey of shredding. But in shredding, the world's worst shredder. I mean, I'm a small business owner. I just live at home. So it's like one of those really crappy shredders you put on the top of a wastebasket. Anyway, it dies every 10 minutes as you're doing stuff. So it takes forever. And you're kind of looking at this stuff sheet by sheet by sheet. And I mean, you guys, I had bills, taxes from the early 2000s, taxes literally from my first marriage, which would have been, God, when did we get married? 2000. So 26 years ago. It just crazy. And I started to, shred. And over the course of these several weeks, I have a half a bin of shredding that I had to actually move to this house because I had a crappy shredder and it was taking forever. But I got through basically all of it. We're going to burn a ton of it out in the backyard because I wasn't able to recycle all of the shredding. And low key, because I'm going to use my daughter's words, low key, it kind of brilliant. Some of the shredding I used to pack my wine glasses and stuff. Because let me tell you, you could spend a lot of money on packing peanuts, or you could just shred your and your parents' documentation for the past 26 years and you'll be good. And I mean, legit, actually, I found their house deeds. I mean, they paid what I paid for a car for the house that we had in North Minneapolis. And I remember them thinking that was a lot. I'm like, oh my God, my dad is probably rolling over in his grave right now. Actually, he's cremated, but his ashes are jiggling. His ashes are jiggling right now on what I paid for this place. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going through these papers and I'm seeing things in a lens that I haven't seen. And I wanted to come on here. I wanted to talk about this today because I don't know that all of you are here yet. But I hope that, the Centered Midlife is a part of helping you to get here. I want so badly for women at this stage to be able to get into a grounded nervous system state. Now, I don't stay there, and this is part of what I want to talk about today. I have experienced traumas and kind of made light of them, which is really funny because as a trauma therapist, I would hold every client I have ever had to the fire not to do this to themselves. But I do it to myself because it's part of your trauma response, right? So you just kind of downgrade it all. But looking at it literally in black and white on paper across decades was a pretty profound experience, my friends. It was a pretty profound experience. And I did it from a grounded nervous system, right? Like I'm sitting in my chair at night and I'm shredding paper after I've worked. My daughter would come in and, sit in this chair, and I was at my desk and I'm shredding and she's talking to T at the end of the school year about what was happening at school. And I'm looking at decades of my life in paper and holding the gravity of what I've been through. And it made me even more grateful and appreciative of how I've gotten to where I am, right? How I've gotten to, it's a privilege to buy a house in America. It's not cheap. To do it as a single person, even more privileged. But also, home for me, space for me has always been my regulator of sorts. It's just my sanctuary, right? Like I know, like, you see tons of people decorating online, but I curate like old furniture and paint it. And I'm very particular about my space and where things are, and aesthetically making things pleasing for me. And it's all because this has always been sanctuary for me. And when sanctuary is interrupted with both my divorces, it definitely was interrupted. Things go into boxes, things get tucked away because it's completely, shattered at that point. I mean, your relationships are shattered, but like your insides are shattered. And sanctuary isn't there. But the way that I start to create sanctuary always has been with my home. Rental, home, doesn't matter, or owning, doesn't matter. It's always been with my space. So there was, like this real moment of watching myself go through these decades and reckoning with how much I've actually been through. And I don't know how you would do that for yourself. Like, I do not advise having to move and look through all that paperwork. But if there is a way for you to reflect on where you have been and truly appreciate what you've been through, I would do it. I would do it. If you can regulate your nervous system and witness what you've been in, right? Not re-traumatize yourself, but just witness what you've been in to give yourself a better perspective, I would strongly recommend. And if you don't think you can regulate yourself, then, find a therapist and walk through that with them so that they can guide and help you. But let me give you an example. Like, I got to the boxes of checkbooks. Oh my God, you guys, so many checkbooks. But I had checkbooks with both my ex-husbands, had to shred. I had my mom's checkbooks. And I don't think I had my dad's, but there were some canceled checks that had my dad's signature on it, which made me laugh because his scribbles and my scribbles are so similar, and yet our names are, well, our last name is the same, Mar, but our first names are so different. But it's uncanny how I somehow drifted into the same crap ass signature as he has. Anyway, I'm looking at these bills of my mom's and I'm realizing that I was fresh out of grad school, fresh out of having my doctorate when my mom died. I had moved in with my toddler son. He was a preschooler when she passed. He had just turned 4. And I'm looking at all of these bills that were like coming in after she had passed, like in the months after. So she died in November, and it was like December and January, and all of these like, we're going to cancel and this is happening and what are you doing? And I know that I moved into my new place. God, it must have been in the winter. It had to have been. She died in November, so I must have moved. I think I moved right after Christmas, so it must have been like January, which has got to be the worst time in the state of Minnesota to move ever. But I did, in a fog. And I'm looking at these bills and I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell did I stay employed, buy a new house, sell my mom's house, get out of that estate, disperse most of her belongings? Because the house that I moved into, like my parents' house growing up in North Minneapolis, was huge. It was, basement was redone, main floor, upstairs had 3 bedrooms and a full bath. And it was a big, big house, took up the whole lot. We had a postage stamp of a backyard on a city lot. And I don't know, I'd have to guess. I think it's probably close to 4,000 square feet, maybe like 3 to 4,000, somewhere in that. I know that's a big, but who cares? It was huge, huge. And then I moved into like this little 2-bedroom bungalow with my son with an unfinished basement. So I know I had to have gotten rid of a ton of that stuff. I have no idea how I did that. Like, I can't access those memories. That's how much trauma that was. My mom was my best friend. She just was, and probably shouldn't have been. Like, there's a lot of things that I've had to process, getting teary, that I've had to process in therapy about, like, she made friends out of her kids instead of like being a parent always, but like that was part of her relational trauma from her growing up without a dad and with a single parent in the 50s, which is unheard of. Her mom was a single mom in the 50s, and so had to move back home and live with her parents because there just was no way to function. So because of those traumas, she wanted to like create 5 different friends essentially out of her 5 kids. But she was like my best friend. And watching her go through cancer was horrific. If you've ever had to watch a loved one go through that, you just know, like, it literally eats their body, but not their spirit, but not their soul, right? So you're like watching them live in a container that's killing them. And it's just such pain. There's so much pain in watching it. I can't imagine what it was to experience it, but I had the lived experience to say it's so painful to watch somebody die that way. And I did that with her. I walked that with her. I was in a terrible, terrible relationship, but I was like so exhausted with everything else I was doing. A parent of a toddler, recently divorced, a new job at a state hospital, which in and of itself was like a really, really stressful job. Now that I look back, I have no idea how I functioned. You just like do. You just do. You just put one foot in front of the other. And I started to realize as I'm looking at these bills, like, how in the hell did I do all of this? But even more, how the hell did I do all of this? And oh my God, if this is what high functioning was, like over functioning, I could get through all of those things that I'm describing. And I'm not even giving you the nitty gritty details. But it was a shit show that if anybody looked at me from the outside, thought like, she's super capable, like she's got this. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the actual F that I was that high functioning in that kind of a mess, right? The trauma responses and behaviors that I was able to embody, unbelievable, just unbelievable that I could get through that. And in perimenopause, as my estrogen is going down and I'm losing that capacity, I'm falling from a very high bar, like a really high bar. So no wonder I feel like a hot mess most of the time. No wonder. If, getting through the death of your mother, and 9 months later, my dad died, guys. So I was her caretaker. Ty and I were living with her. And then I was moving out of that house and I was breaking up with that relationship because it was terrible. Again, staying employed. I remember full Saturday and Sundays where I would get up and feed him and lay on the couch and put PBS on and whatever, videos that he wanted to watch. And I just didn't move on the weekends. Like, I couldn't function. So I'd function Monday through Friday, and then I couldn't function after that. Just unbelievable what I was able to do. But because that woman is here in me on enough estrogen, as I lose the estrogen, it's a steep cliff. It's a steep cliff to where I'm going to have to live the rest of my life because we just don't have that kind of estrogen. Even if I could do HRT, I'm never going to have that capacity in the way that I did, the stress resilience that I did. And for good reason. Like, nobody should have been able to function as well as I did through an atrocious a time as I did. Nobody should have to do that. And the consequences of that are so amazingly I will never be able to, the consequences of this are high. They're so high. I'll never be able to overcome all that. I'm going to have to learn how to function on the other side in perimenopause and menopause. But those things came at such a high cost. The fact that I was, just coasting, functioning at this level when I had no business functioning at all. Oh, by the way, like a year later, I passed my, you would call them board exams or whatever. It's called the EPPP for psychologists. I have no fucking clue how I did all this. It's just, oh my God, I can't. It's just like, oh my God. But I can see how I walked into crap ass relationships, right? Because I was barely like, my idea of relationship was that I had to overfunction for the other person, just flat out. Like, that's how it worked. So projects were attracted to me, I would say. And I don't mean to say that disparagingly about any of the people that I was with. They're humans, and they're, two of them are parents of my children. So I'm not saying it to be like, oh, these guys were just a mess. I was a mess. They also, projects were attracted to me because I overfunction, and relationships for me were responsibility. Relationships for me were how do I over anticipate your needs and meet your needs? That's what I knew. So the cost on the other side of that, my friends, is that relationships feel very dangerous for me now in the delicate state of a low estrogen life, because I don't know how to be in a reciprocity. I don't know how to function in that. I didn't see it growing up in the relationship that my parents had, and I didn't live it in any relationship that I had after that. And so the cost of being so over functioning all of my life is that I don't know how to do that very well. And I have to be honest, I'm not sure that I'm willing to want to learn at this stage, because I'm at the point in my life where, there's just, I have less time. There's so many things I want to do, and I have so much less time to do them in. I'm probably have less years on the earth than I've had thus far, right? I might make it to 100, but for my functional years, do I want to spend time repairing that muscle so that I can have a partner? I don't know that I do. I don't today. And, some people think of that and they're like, oh, well, she's choosing to be unhealed, and she's choosing, to shut off things and avoid. And to some extent, they might be, right. Those are patterns in my disorganized attachment, right? Having been raised in an alcoholic family system, avoidance is alluring for me in relationships. But what I'm really saying is, I'm being honest with myself that I was this individual. I'm shredding these papers and I am looking at her life and I'm like, what in the actual, how did she do all those things? The psychologist in me says, oh, I get it. She overfunctioned. She didn't think she had any other options. Estrogen allowed her that ability. And now, without the estrogen, she's going to have to make some real hard decisions about what she does and doesn't do with this life, because she can't overfunction anymore. Not allowed. And if I go on a path where I keep trying to overfunction, it will hurt my body, it will hurt my mind, it will hurt my spirit, and it will take years off my life. Full stop. No way around that. Not enough estrogen to do it anymore. Full stop. So I want you to think, I encourage you to reflect, what was your overfunctioning? Because I know you did it, because you're a woman in America. None of us don't overfunction. And don't compare yourself to my life and say, well, I did more than Natalie did, or I did less, and so I don't have room to complain. Fuck that. Whatever you did, you were overfunctioning within your context. And that's all there needs to be, right? It doesn't have to be comparative. Comparing yourself to other people is a useless endeavor. There is no competition here. It is an N of one. You are the only person you need to compare to. So it's like across your lifetime, did I have to do this overfunction? And if I did, at what cost did that come? And now, what does that mean for the choices that I have today? I feel very rambly today, so I apologize, guys, if I'm all over the place. But I do think, even though avoidance is alluring to my disorganized attachment style, that's not what this is. This is choosing. This is not avoiding. This is choice. I have this one precious life, right? And I didn't get to choose how I came into it, or the kinds of defenses I had to create because of how I came into it. How the context of when I was dissociated and didn't know what I didn't know during my traumas and started to overfunction, the consequences of that, I can't unchoose those now, right? I only get the cards that I've been dealt and are in front of me. I choose me. I want freedom. I want contentment. I want to experience joy from time to time. And I do with the people that are still in my life. I don't want to have to work a muscle that I've never, I don't want a workout plan on relationships. I don't. And that's what it would take for me to be healthy. And so my choice is me. Like, I just want to be me and love my life where I'm at. So I don't think of it as avoidance. I think of it as a choice. I think of it as, I've created some defense mechanisms and atrophied the ability to be able to do something healthy in a romantic relationship. And I could choose to work on that, but it would take resources away from me getting to choose other things. And I don't want to do that. So I choose me. I'm alone. And I'm cool with that. Will I change my mind later? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what future Natalie is going to do. But today, Natalie is like super happy that she has her little house, her little sanctuary, that she worked really hard to be able to do and take care of herself and her kid. Kids kind of, but he's an adult, but they always need us a little bit. And I'm happy. Truly, I'm happy. But I really appreciate that earlier me went through fire. Yeah, earlier me went through some trials. And had she not, I wouldn't be the version of me that I am today. And I could get resentful about the things that have atrophied and that I don't have for myself, or I could really appreciate that she had to do what she had to do. And I choose that too. I'm super grateful that she stuck it out for me, and shredding like one thing after another and seeing the pain that she had to face and how scared and how alone I know that earlier version of me felt. And she got up every day anyway. She got up and she did it anyway. And did estrogen help her? Yeah. Yeah, it did. It was one of her resources. Thank God. It's not a resource I get to have now, but it was a resource she got to have, and thank God, But it's painful, to inventory of your life this way. And I think it was so important for me over the course of like 6 weeks as I'm shredding decade after decade after decade of my life, for me to really appreciate all I have done and had to survive. And then I don't want to choose a life of survival mode. That's why I call this podcast the Centered Midlife. I just want to be centered in my life. I just want to just get up and be content, I don't want everything to have to be a to-do list. I don't want everything to be, I have to do this way. I have to get, I have to accomplish the next thing. But I've watched myself over the last 3 weeks as I've packed and moved and started to unpack and cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, that all of those patterns in this amount of stress, because moving is stressful, period, end of sentence. Super happy that we moved, super loving my new place, and very stressful, 10 out of 10 stressful. So, like, I see myself get all up in arms that I have boxes upon boxes upon boxes. And yet on a Sunday morning like today, all I want to do is just stay braless in my pajamas and watch TV, scroll on my phone, and drink coffee. For real. I don't want to do a dang thing. Do I have things to do? I have a million things to do. I want to choose me. And I know that every time I do that, because I've been an overfunctioner for so long in my life, I know that I will struggle with the loud voice, that overbearing voice in my head that this is lazy. But truly what it is my nervous system interprets rest as unsafe. Right? So shredding these paper, one of the ways that woman functioned is she never stopped ever, right? Saturdays and Sundays, she literally was paralyzed because the overfunctioner had to keep going, had to keep going, had to keep going, had to keep going. And so, she saw boxes, she unpacked them. She saw walls that were white, she painted them. She, saw a room that wasn't functioning well for her lifestyle, and she knocked down walls and, whatever. The overfunctioning in me, she's still here. She's still super loud. And she shows up mostly when I don't feel safe. Mostly when my nervous system is interpreting something to me and like, there is something amiss here. We shouldn't do this. Laziness does that. And it's not lazy, it's rest. And a midlife woman's body needs rest more than probably any other time. Maybe when you're a baby and a kid because you're growing, but it's similar, right? Like there's so many physical changes happening to your body. But I felt sick a couple days this week. Like I was coming down with something like, like achy in your bones, take Tylenol because it's a low grade fever kind of thing. And I knew better. I knew exactly what it was. My mattress is on a floor because my box spring would not fit up the stairs of my story and a half's house. Just, bad planning. Didn't think about that. So I had to buy a different kind of platform bed, and I haven't lifted up the mattress. My mattress on the floor is shit, and I don't sleep well when it's like that. Plus, my daughter and I have our mattresses in the same bedroom, laying on the same floor. It's my bedroom while we're painting her room because it's, only the 2 bedrooms upstairs. So that and the 2 cats who we needed to move into a space with her and let them acclimate before we let them, out across the house has made for fun midlife sleeping. That's the reason I was up at 4:45. Because I have kind of a shelf life of how long I can lay on that mattress, and my back is like, and we're done. Girl, you need to get up and move. So the endorphins make her back feel better. Okay. So yeah, I know that just lack of sleep is such a power. It makes me feel sick, literally. It probably could make me sick. It probably compromises my immune system, right? Like there's all of this cascade. I know these things now, but knowing them doesn't make my body feel any differently. It doesn't make my body feel comfortable sitting in a room of boxes. It doesn't make my body feel comfortable letting myself lazily look at DIY videos all morning long before I hopped on to do this podcast. So I have to constantly do that battle. The battle gets better. And I said to you earlier in the podcast, like, I just want so much for all women to have a centered midlife. That's what I want. Because I'm pretty sure you've had a dysregulated adulthood if you're a woman in America, There's very few of us. You're quite privileged if you figured this out earlier than midlife. Midlife is just a reckoning because physiologically, we're not going to be able to overfunction at the level, at the caliber that we were before. Could we overfunction? Absolutely. It'll compromise years of our life. It will, but we can keep doing it. But it's miserable, much more miserable than it was when we were younger, because the estrogen really just was like this. It's like doing it on drugs, It's like doing it as an alcoholic. It just feels better if you're drunk all the time, right? But it's not, right? So that comes at a cost. And this is what we did. Our overfunctioning was like being a functional alcoholic all our effing lives. Estrogen allowed us a buffer to overfunction and not have any clue how we did it. But that comes at a cost. My guess is I am not alone. It's not even a guess. I know I'm not alone. The research would say that. My clients tell me that. I know. But I also am seeing midlife now as this golden opportunity in perimenopause, instead of as, something like hateful, awful, why women have to go through this other bodily change. I want to see it as the miracle that it is, like it was a miracle that I got to bring life into this world, which is why I had estrogen in the first place. And now as I lose it and become human instead of superhuman, it is a gift at this stage in my life when I still have my health and my wits about me to choose me. I no longer will be able to overfunction without being absolutely, positively, completely miserable and taking years off my life. I don't get more years. I don't get more time, but I do get to have choice. So right now, instead of giving in to what my nervous system wants me to do, which is to overfunction, unpack this house and paint every room and have it all done, that's not what safety is. That exhausts me, physically makes me feel ill. That was a behavior, a defense mechanism that I created early on in my adulthood as I saw through all those papers as I was shredding, that allowed me to survive during just awful times in my life. I thank my earlier self for figuring out what she had to do. But I'm going to choose us now and say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit in a house with boxes for 4 weeks if I want to, or more, until I feel ready to unpack everything, right? I'll do a box a day. And if I don't feel like doing a box a day, I'll sit and have popsicles for dinner. Like, for real. Like, that is, I'll do whatever my body tells me I want to do. And this is what I want for you. A centered midlife is a you tapped into you at such a deep level that you can watch yourself do the old behaviors and feel the old pulls and choose differently. And choose yourself. Choose to do what makes you feel right and good and content. This midlife does not have to be a crisis. It does not have to be, I don't know, some awful trial. It's an opportunity to choose yourself, but it'll come with loss. You're going to lose that old version of you. I don't think she dies or goes away. She can be loud in your mind. She can be present. All parts of you are welcome, but not all parts of you are needed, not for this part of your life. So we can make a space for her in this home where she can stay busy and be moving 24/7. I don't care. But I'm not, right? I'm going to rest when I need to rest. I'm going to listen to my body. And instead of pushing myself to collapse and paralyzation, which is something I used to do, I'm going to get up at 4:45 because my body won't let me sleep anymore. And I'll probably go to bed about 7 tonight. I swear to God. At least I'll be winding down at 7. I don't know if I go to sleep, but I'm going to, just listen to my body and scroll and watch DIY videos so I can learn how to do some board and batten in my office, which is my next fun little thing that I want to do so that I don't have white walls behind me. We'll have to have some new fun stuff for you to look at when you're on YouTube or watching me on Spotify. I'm sorry if I rambled. I'm sorry if you're bored. I hope some semblance of sense came out of this, but this just struck me. Like, I just knew I wasn't going to be able to post a podcast in the middle of this. So I apologize. It's been about a month since you've probably heard from me. But as I, went through this experience, I just felt like I had to share it. It's the kind of experience you would want to go out to lunch with your girlfriend and say, oh my God, I just appreciate so much more how much I went through and how important it is for me to slow it down and make different choices now for myself. For myself. I'm the me that I have to live with the rest of my life, my whole life, but for sure the rest of my life. I am the me. My kids, they're going to grow up, they're going to move. That's the whole point, right? But there's a relationship that you have, a core relationship with this person that you live in for the rest of your life, for all of your life, that if you've not cultivated that relationship, let's start, let's do it. That's what a centered midlife is. And I think it will allow a gateway into the kind of life that you really want to live, that you can't wait to get up in the morning for. And I'm sure that boggles the mind. I don't care. I hope at least one of you heard what my ramblings had to say today. It's okay. It's okay if you've overfunctioned all the way up until this point. In fact, it's understandable, and your biology kind of set you up. That's the truth. And now, midlife, perimenopause, menopause gets to be your choice into the kind of life you want to be living. And I want to help you. I want to be a witness to it. I want to be here with you through that. So keep listening to the podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these two crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone, text HOME, home, to 741-741 to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.